If the economy is fine, why does it feel like a luxury to get Chipotle right now? Because that's literally what Chipotle's own CEO has been warning about. In October 2025, its CEO, Scott Boatwright, told analysts they were seeing pressure from customers ages 25 to 35, especially households earning under $100,000. And these people are coming less often because they feel the pinch. He pointed to a mix of rising unemployment, resumed student loan payments, and sluggish wage growth. But at the same time, something else is happening. And this is where the story gets a little uncomfortable. Luxury is booming. Rolex had one of the strongest sales years in history, with demand still far outstripping supply. High-end travel is packed. First-class cabins are full. Premium credit card spending keeps hitting records. The number of global billionaires is way higher than it was pre-pandemic, and their combined wealth has doubled in the last 5 years. And the stock market, which mostly benefits the top, has recovered way faster than wages ever did. So on one side of the economy, people are cutting back on burritos, but on the other side, people are buying $15,000 watches and booking weekend getaways without even thinking twice. Same country, same month, same inflation rate, but two totally different economies. And before you jump into the usual conclusion like the middle class is dying, not so fast. Because what's happening right now is not a clean collapse, it's a split. The K-shaped economy is what it's called, and it's not about people getting poor, it's about some people moving up while others slide down, all at the exact same time. One line of the economy keeps rising, powered by assets, investments, and high income. The other line is bending downward, squeezed by rent, food, debt, and just everyday costs. So that shape, showing one arm up, one arm down, is the K. And once you start looking for it, you can actually see it almost everywhere. The classic definition came into mainstream talk during the pandemic era. And the idea was simple. After a shock, parts of the economy rebound fast while other parts stagnate or decline, hence the K. Now, originally people used K-shaped recovery to describe industries, like tech and finance were flying while restaurants and hospitality were drowning. But in 2025, that conversation shifted. The K now represents people. Higher income households are doing fine, sometimes great because they own assets, have stable jobs, and they can absorb higher prices. Lower and middle income households are getting squeezed because the costs that matter most, like housing, insurance, food, childcare, car payments, well, those keep going up. They don't wait for your wages to go up. The AP described this in late 2025 as an unusually muddy economy. Strong growth in a booming stock market alongside weak confidence and more strained lower down the ladder. So when someone says the economy is doing well, they could be right, they could be wrong, it just depends on who they're asking right now. Let's do the proof the way a researcher would, but in normal language. First, spending is splitting by income. The Philadelphia Fed looked at survey data in October 2025 and found that lower income respondents were way more likely to be actively trying to reduce spending, and even more likely to report that their spending fell compared to a year earlier. Rising costs were the most commonly cited reason. So that means that the economy is mostly being carried by rich people. There was a major data point analysis of Federal Reserve data, and this was cited by Bloomberg. It found that the top 10% of earners accounted for over 49% of total spending. That was in Q2 of 2025, but that was nearly the highest level in data going back to 1989. So just think about that for a second. About half of the spending in this country is being done by the 10% richest people. That is not a healthy, everyone's doing okay stat. That is a dependency on the rich. It also explains why you can see packed first-class cabins, fully booked high-end resorts, and even record concert tours, while a huge chunk of people are just pulling back on buying a Chipotle burrito. Okay, but why is this happening? Inflation is part of it, but that's the shallow explanation. The deeper story is that we ran a decade-long experiment where assets inflated faster than wages. If you owned a home before prices jumped, you built wealth just by sleeping. If you owned stocks during the big rallies, you earned wealth just by not touching those stocks. But if you didn't own assets, you didn't get that boost. You got more bills. And that's the K-shaped mechanic. Asset owners float upward, everyone else is kind of treading water here. And now add that sort of pressure to younger or middle income households. I mean, student loan payments resumed, entry-level job markets cooled, rent stayed high or even went up, car insurance went up, grocery bills, and all of this is exactly what the Chipotle CEO was describing. They're not losing customers to a competitor. People are just eating at home more often because money is tighter. Meanwhile, the higher income households still spend because their constraints are different. Their housing costs are often locked in, and their investment accounts benefited from the stock market strength. The other commonly said comment right now would be, well, isn't the middle class just dying? But here's the thing, the middle class is not like a light switch. It doesn't just erode in one day or 1 year or even a decade. A K-shaped economy can show up even while the middle class still exists because it's about divergence. Some middle class households are basically upper middle class now. They bought a home early, they have stable jobs, they have investments. So they're on the upper arm of that K. Other middle class households are maybe one rent increase away from total panic, and they would be on the lower arm. And that's why you can't explain all of this by just saying the middle class is dying. The truth is a lot more unsettling. It's splitting into two. Okay, so why is this happening now, and how come this isn't something we've seen often? Wages. Wage momentum cooled for many workers, especially younger workers. JP Morgan Chase Institute reported in late 2025 that real income growth slowed to near decade lows for 25 to 54-year-olds, and that workers between the ages of like 25 and 29 saw a sharper slowdown in income gains. Also, spending started to diverge. So Business Insider summarized data showing higher income spending grew near 3% in late 2025, while lower income spending growth was under 1%. That's a widening gap that feeds this whole K-shaped narrative, and companies are starting to talk about this whole thing openly. Like, once your CEO says our core younger customers are coming less often because they don't have the money, that's not just cultural commentary right now. That's literally demand weakness showing up in earnings calls. Okay, but has this happened before? Yes, it has. This isn't the first time it's happened, but right now we kind of see all of this with a modern twist. Inequality-driven divergence is not a new thing. You can find echoes of it in the 1920s, in the decades before the Great Depression, and again after 2008 when asset prices recovered way faster than wages. But the term K-shaped recovery became popular in 2020 because the pandemic made the split visually obvious and immediate. One side of the economy could work from home on laptops. The other side had to show up in person or lose income. And now the twist is AI, and asset-heavy growth can lift markets without lifting everyone's wages at the same speed. So the upper arm can keep rising even when the lower arm stalls. And so the AP recently noticed that even though AI-related stocks have been booming, hiring has been slow and confidence is weaker. So yes, even though we've seen this divergence before, what's new is how fast it's showing up in everyday life and how openly companies are actually acknowledging that. But what happens next? You can think of path one like a contained K. The upper income group could keep spending enough to keep the headline economy afloat, kind of like they're doing now. Stocks do fine, luxury stays strong, airports stay busy, and the lower part just kind of adapts. More cooking at home, more bargain shopping, more saying I'm fine even though they're stressed. But path two is when this K becomes unstable. I mean, think about it. If half the economy's spending is coming from that top 10%, the whole system gets kind of fragile. If markets wobble or confidence cracks at the top, there could be problems. And even if the top stays strong, the social consequences of a permanent two-track economy are serious. You have lower mobility, more cynicism, more potential political volatility, more people just saying that the game is rigged against them because it is. So this whole K-shaped economy is kind of like a warning label. And the reason Chipotle matters right now is because this is kind of like an economic indicator. When a normal lunch becomes something that people are cutting back on that they didn't used to cut back on, while premium spending stays hot, that's the K economy. Now the question becomes, what happens next? I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. While you're at it, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next one.